In the South Pacific, the Russian research ship academic Vladislav Volkov talks to the space station Mir in orbit. Mir is hit by a massive energy source that is going across space, killing the cosmonauts and beaming down to Volkov. The crew is attacked by the electrical surge that takes over the ship. 7 days later, while navigating through a typhoon, the tugboat Sea Star, which is commanded by Robert Everton, an alcoholic, loses its uninsured cargo. The crew of Sea Star, under the command of engineer Steve Baker and navigator and former Navy commander Kelly Foster, find the engine room absorbing water. They become aware of Volkov when Sea Star seeks shelter in the storm's eye to repair. Everton orders his men on board after realizing that the salvage could be worth millions. The Russian crew appears to be vanished, and the majority of the electronics on Volkov have been damaged. Steve is instructed by Everton to assist Squeaky, a fellow crew member, in reviving the ship's power. Soon after, Sea Star sinks with deckhand Hiko and first mate J.W. Woods, Jr. aboard when the ship's anchor drops by itself. Steve abandons Squeaky to protect the engine room, where a robotic, spider-like entity entices him to his demise. Woods escapes unharmed, but Steve saves an injured Hiko. Chief Science Officer Nadia Vinogradova, the only survivor of Volkov's crew, shoots at the crew while Foster tends to Hiko in the sick bay before Steve subdues her. Nadia begs the crew to turn down the generators because she is worried about it needing power to move around the ship. She assaults Foster and Everton, who restrain her and lead her to the bridge. Instead of finding Squeaky in the engine room, Steve, Woods, and crewman Richie Mason find an automated workshop that is manufacturing more of the odd robots. The robots and what looks to be a Russian crew member brandishing a gun attack the three. The three use explosives they had collected from the ship's small arms compartment to knock down the Russian, who turns out to be a cyborg, and carry its apparently lifeless body to the bridge. The ship's captain and Nadia's husband were brought to the bridge after the sentient electrical energy beaming from the Mir took control of the ship 8 days earlier, searched the ship's computers for information on killing humans, and then used the automated workshops to turn Volkov's crew into cyborgs. The gang makes its way to the computer room as the storm returns. A gigantic robot and a modified Squeaky ambush them en route, killing Woods. Richie sends out a mayday as the survivors barricade themselves in the communications room, but Everton, unable to part with his salvage, blasts out the radio. Foster takes Everton out of command by punching him. Richie communicates with the extraterrestrial, known as the Intelligence, via the computers. It informs them that it is aware and views humans as a virus that it intends to use as spare parts. Richie becomes so enraged by this that he shoots Squeaky and runs away. Everton uses the opportunity to speak with the Intelligence after the other crew members exit the chamber, and they identify him as the dominant life form. The crew learns that Volkov's computer has been relocated within the ship by the Intelligence. They go outside to return to the bridge after realizing the ship is moving, but Hiko is lost to the typhoon. Everton, meantime, is led to one of the workshops and strikes a deal with the Intelligence. Nadia speculates that the Intelligence wants to take over a British intelligence facility so it can take over the world's armed forces, and Foster confirms that Volkov is headed for Lord Howe Island. As they make the decision to sink Volkov, the survivors use a thermite hand grenade to beat the now cyborg Everton. They lay explosive charges and drain the ship's fuel tanks. Nadia, Steve, and Foster encounter Richie. Suddenly, Nadia, Richie, and Steve are attacked by a huge robot that is controlled by the Intelligence. Foster is apprehended by the Intelligence and subjected to torture in order to find the detonator. Richie, who has been mortally wounded, tells Steve that he has prepared an escape-useful jury-rigged ejection seat. Nadia sacrifices herself by shooting a flare gun at adjacent gas tanks to destroy the Intelligence, but it is merely injured by the explosion, and then she and Steve go after the survivors after saving Foster. By using Richie's ejection seat to escape the ruthless robot form, Foster and Steve manage to escape safely. This causes the missile bomb to explode and sinks Volkov, which causes the sentient electricity to scatter in the seawater. When Foster regains consciousness, he discovers Hiko stranded. As a cyborg hybrid, he yells and lunges for her, but it turns out to be a nightmare when a US naval ship rescues Foster and Steve.